Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Southern Reads Podcast, the show where I talk about books and only books and everything book related. And today I'm joined by Miss Niki Borger. Niki is an international writer, actor, and producer, known for her original plays in the Extravaganza Theater Festival in Los Angeles, her award-winning short films Because I Could, and a portrayal of a subtle suicide, and her personal transformation show Unlimit Yourself. Today, she's here to share a little bit about her writing career as some of the books she has come out with. So I'm excited to get into our conversation today. So, Nikki, thank you so much for taking time to come on the podcast today, and welcome to Southern Reads.
Thank you so much, Noah. It's such a pleasure to be here today.
So, tell me a little bit about your writing journey and share with me how you got into writing for the first.
It all started actually in 2019. I had come to the US in 2018 and I shot a bunch of short films at that time. And then nobody submitted to festivals, but I needed festival exposure for a visa to be able to stay here. So I got frustrated with, I shot 40 short films and nobody submitted. And so I went ahead and wrote three short films of my own, actually shot two. And then when the pandemic hit in 2020, I went ahead and edited them and got them into the festival run. And those were Because I Could and A Portrayal of a Subtle Suicide.
One of the things that you talk a lot about and you write about is kind of the gender neutral storytelling. So, tell me how it was writing gender neutral plays.
That's a great question. So, again, like as an actor, I was frustrated pretty quickly about the roles that were available to me as a woman. And then already there are more roles for women than there are for people who identify as transgender or who identify with a specific sexuality or anything like that, right? So I can relate to that frustration because up till now, between 2/3 and 4/5 of the roles that are written from men, straight men, and I have always been frustrated with that. So after doing these two short films and having this first experience of writing and this like really lucky situations early on, I dove deeper into it. I developed some TV shows with a writing partner that I've been working with and some feature film concepts. But I didn't have the full liberty to do what I want until I was elected into the Extravaganza One Act Fest. And that was the first time where I not just wrote something, but actually got to develop it on. Like we would workshop our plays for months and keep on making them better and better and better, which gave me, I think, the knowledge and the craft that I needed to really make good stories and take them all the way. And that principle of taking the story all the way, that's what led to making my current one act plays in the book in between, to making them gender neutral, because I honestly don't see the point in why I should attach a gender to my characters in a situation that is so universal, such as, grief, loss, death, all the things that are happening in the book. It's obviously different when you write something that has a sociological or historical context, something that actually happened, where I would fully encourage to be as accurate to and respectful to what has happened as possible. But in a universal setting like this, I felt like writing them gender neutral was the only thing that made sense to me. And of course, it's a little clunky in the writing. It's not as easy to write that way, and sometimes in the wording, I had to indicate gender just because there's no, how should I say this, no stylized way of saying certain things gender neutral yet. But it says in all my plays that if you choose someone from a different gender, just change the lines, which I'm totally fine with as long as the context and the message remain the same.
Do you think a lot of authors now do not focus on this kind of writing and kind of development for their characters, or do you see a lot of authors actually use this kind of method and technique when they're doing their writing and developing these characters?
That's a great question, and I probably should have done more research on that. I could not find a whole lot of, at least not in their titles. I know Broadway casts without ethnicity, which is great, obviously. But I haven't seen a whole lot of it yet, and I think part of it is because it is clunky to write that way. It does not feel comfortable because we're not used to it, right? But if you want to create progress, sometimes you have to push beyond what's comfortable and what's normal and see where it takes you, right?
What has been the reception that you have received from critics and from readers and listeners too about your way of not having a specified gender and writing these gender neutral characters? What's been some of the overall reception that you've received?
The reception has actually been great, and I have not had a single person say that this threw them off or this was weird. I think what makes the plays and in between very special is that their tone and their setting and their resolution can create a healing experience for whoever is reading or watching them. So by going gender neutral, I'm giving way more space to the readers to project their own experience onto this. Like they can have the conversations that they maybe wish they would have had in real life but never got the chance with a person or something. And that is a lot easier when I give less descriptions about what is actually happening. I also think it's much more fun for the actors. Like, I think it's much more interesting to have that space and that openness to really make a character your own and define the relationship. Because if everything is written by the writer, then where is the space for creativity from the actor or the director, right? So by keeping it open, I think it becomes a much more beneficial experience for everyone. And yeah, everybody who's read it so far loved that aspect of it.
One of the books that you've come out with and one of the stories has been In Between. Tell me a little bit about the background and backstory behind In Between and what inspired the stories in that.
So I was encouraged to write in between by the director of the Extravaganza One Act Fest, Wolfgang Bodison. He's a very well-known actor and director. His breakout role was in A Few Good Men alongside Jack Nicholson, Tom Cruise, and for the Extravaganza Fest, I pitched a one act that I had written, which was called 97 Beats. And that one act play is set in a hospital. There's one person in a coma, and their spouse comes in, and the doctor tells them that they're still trying to find out what's happening. And then time slows down, an angel appears, and an angel is trying to convince that very sick person to leave with them voluntarily now that time is up. They have 97 beats left until their heartbeat actually stops. And it will be a lot easier for them if they were to leave now. And I'm not going to spoil the rest of this. It's a very dramatic story. But this one act got elected into the 2025 Extravaganza One Act Fest in Los Angeles. And we developed it, we performed it in front of a lot of audiences over several weeks, which was a great experience. And from there on, the director, Wolf, he encouraged me to keep writing more in this direction. So I did, and these stories evolved, and that became In Between. So In Between, a gender-neutral one-act plays between life and death, is a set of 8 one-act plays that can each function on their own, but they also have an overall arc and form one full-length play, so they can be put up either way. And they're actually set to be produced by Tesseract Theater Company in Los Angeles in the summer.
So, of all the stories that you've come out with and have had the opportunity to write and be a writer on, what's been one of your more favorite things that you've come out with and something that's really stood out to you and you're real passionate about?
Well, I mean, ideally, a writer's passionate about all their stories, right? Because if you're not, then your job becomes a job and less of passion. But I'm a whole different passion for different stories, obviously. Personally, I like it a lot more to have stories with depth and levity at the same time. That's a sweet spot that I'm really passionate about. Um, and all the stories and in between have that. So there are comedic ones, there are dramatic ones, but even the dramatic ones have some levity to them. Another project that I'm super passionate about that I'm actually about to start next week, like actively producing, is called NFTs, which I've created and I'm writing, but I will also have a writer's room because this is a TV show. That one is about a group of college nerds that have to get along with very sexy and open minded people, which I think is a really fun concept. And I'm super excited to explore that and develop that and produce it and then shoot it.
Between the plays, the short films that you've had the chance of writing on, which one's more easier for you to write on, and is there like a certain writing technique or writing style that you use for all these, or the does it kind of differentiate between a play and a short film? Share with me a little bit more about your writing process.
I love that. Well, I am a huge fan of short form content because you have to be so precise with it. Like short form is really where you drill your skills. It's you do not get any extra lines, you do not get any extra beats. You have to be as precise in your storytelling as you possibly can. So it's a great way to learn. I've probably written about 21 act plays, 25 one act plays at this point, and I really enjoy that because in in film you can always still, fake some things. You can do different angles. You can cut from one thing to another, so there's more possibilities. But for a one act play on stage, it's really they're really not easy to write, and especially if you want it to be an engaging one. So here are the things that I like to have in my one act plays. First of all, there has to be conflict, and it has to be a conflict that is in its deeper understanding very universal and relatable, but it's in its execution very precise. For example, the theme of loss is very universal, but then I put it into a very specific context in which it is happening, which you need for the story to be intriguing. From the conflict, I create two characters or more, but often two, and I like to give them like something that is very relatable, a save the cat scene, we would say in filmmaking, like something that makes the audience like them. But I also like to give them a little bit of edge. So they're, not perfect, but interesting to watch. Then I really like to introduce something with urgency into my one act plays because I think it's more interesting when there's a clock ticking in the background and, there are some stakes to the whole thing that the audience can feel as well. They obviously always have to be stakes for the characters, but if the audience can feel it, they're more engaged throughout the whole thing. And then we look for a plot twist, right? Like, what is the most interesting twist that I can give to the story at the end that nobody's expecting, but when it happens, everybody will be looking back and see the signs leading up to that. So I sprinkle little hints throughout the beginning of the one act play. And then when it happens, you're like, oh man, I could have seen that coming, but I didn't. And that's such a fulfilling experience, I think, for the audience, because again, they're not just engaged on an emotional level, they're engaged on a mental level, and they are as involved on every level as they can be in a stage play production.
Of the one of all the plays that you've come out with, has there been one that's been more difficult to write, or just because you had maybe writer's block, or you didn't know how you wanted to format the story?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's one that I haven't published because it hints at some pop culture context, so you couldn't, I don't have the rights to that, but I still wrote it and it was really fun. But I had to rewrite that, I would say, from scratch a solid 20 times, and then from there another 20 times refining it. And it's just a one act play. It runs like 14 minutes. It took me months and it was awful because so many times I had to bring in a bad draft. It was part of the Extravaganza Fest as well. And it's just really annoying when you have to bring in a draft that is bad and your peers will hear it, and there's going to be criticism, but you can't fix it even though you've tried right now. You just can't figure it out. And that is a tough experience to go through, especially if it goes on for weeks and weeks. But what came out on the other side of this was a phenomenal, cute little one act that I really loved and had a lot of fun with. And it was certainly worth that period of challenge and hardship and ego death, one could say, right? Because it's not like your peers are going to judge you. It's always the people below you that will judge you, right? The people ahead of you won't. They will understand writer's block and challenges, and they will have supportive criticism, and they will cheer you on and hope that you can figure it out. And I did, But the ego suffers in between, and that's what you have to get over. I always think it's better to have a bad draft than to have none, because from a bad draft you can get help on how to move on.
When you're talking about these characters and these gender neutral characters, do they come from people that you've experienced and have met in your life, or have they just been from total research about gender neutral roles? And how did you go about deciding what characters would be gender neutral and deciding like what their personality and characteristic was going to be?
So I like to work from vibe and energy a lot more than from anything else. And I definitely used examples of certain vibes or certain energies to write those characters. And there's one play in between. It's called Joey and Jace, and it's about twin siblings that are about to be born, but something goes wrong during that process, and it's the question whether they're both gonna live or not. Like, what's gonna happen? Birthing is a dangerous process, right? It's the question what will happen there. And they're having this discussion. And they're written with a lot more masculine energy, but the dynamic is a strong reflection of how I talk to my brother, for example. And because we have that type of communicating with one another. So energy wise, a lot of it is based and rooted in experiences that I've actually had. And then I just take out the denomination, right? Because everybody still has a vibe to them. And what gender plays it out, that's an individual choice, right? Like a lot of very feminine women nowadays have very masculine energy when it comes to business, or careers because they have to, because that is the only way you can make it happen. Now, I would go ahead and write that masculine energy, but just not say who it's played by, so the person gets a choice, right? Whether they vibe with that or whether they want to portray something else. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I think it's really beneficial, especially in this day and age, bringing these kind of characters and bringing this kind of topic to the forefront because I think a lot of authors don't do that. And for you to be able to have this be out there and be told is very beneficial for I know so many people. Um, Going forward, what are some projects that you have coming up that you are working on that you are excited to have published and have the chance to have released?
Well, first I want to say I'm glad you agree with this, right? Because I haven't run this by anybody really before going ahead and publishing gender neutral. I was just like, this is what I think is best. This is what I want. I just want freedom for everybody. And this is the most forward way of doing it, by just letting the actor choose who they vibe with and who they want to portray. I think is the best way for me, and that's how I would want it to be. So I'm glad you agree on that. Going forward, I am super excited about doing that TV show NFTs. I'm also working on a set of one act plays about women warriors in the past. So they're all based off of historical characters, and that one will be called Red Dragons. And I'm working more on those stories. I'm also working on a new set of one act plays called Voices, which will also be, a little more abstract, a little more like in between, gender neutral. And yeah, that is what I'm working on. I'm excited about all of them. Actually, it's so great when you follow your dreams and get to do the things at some point that you genuinely love and you're excited about. Even the process is a very rewarding experience.
So, if any authors or if anyone's listening, if they're having kind of second thoughts about publishing a book and they're worried about maybe having gender neutral characters, what advice do you have for them of how they can um, break that kind of stigma of worry and be passionate and write about what they really do want to write about?
I would encourage anybody ever to write about the things they care about the most. If you're passionate about it, if you feel it in your heart, allow that to come through and come out and make it onto the page. Nobody else has to like it, right? Which is so special about arts to begin with, because for us, it's not about the end result, it's about the process. Our life is the process. The end result is like 0.5% of our time. So the other 99.5%, that's what you actually have to enjoy, right? And in order to enjoy it, you have to create something that you really like and that you really care about and that really matters to you. And if it matters to you, it will matter to other people. How many people that's going to be, that's not your choice to make. And that's not what you should worry about while you're creating in the first place. I mean, you should have a little bit of an idea, like but I would say the more you can write from your own truth and your own heart and your own passion, the better your book is actually gonna be. And aside from that, you gotta take the leap. Your first book's not gonna be perfect. In between is not perfect. Your second book won't be perfect either, nor will your third. But maybe your 20th or your 30th. If you look at all famous writers out there, they have published early books that weren't that great, and they've published books in between that weren't that great, and that is okay, because not everything has to be great. It just has to be something that you care about and a few other people care about, and that makes you happy, really.
Well, Nikki, I appreciate you so, so much for taking time out of your schedule to come on the podcast today to share your story and to share what you've been real passionate about what all the achievements that you have. For anyone that's interested in checking out your work, if they would love to follow you on the socials, where can they go to learn more information and learn more about these projects that you have working on?
Oh, thank you for asking that. And thank you for having me. This has been a great conversation. If you want to stay in touch, the easiest way is through Instagram. My handle is at Niki with 1K J Borger. Or my webpage, nikijborger.com. That's where you can find all my plays and everything that I've written, everything that I've working on. And yeah, that's so Instagram webpage. That's probably the best ways.
And I will put all this information in the description boxes and in the show notes as well. Her social media accounts as well as their uh social media accounts will be down there. So feel free to go check them out and support Nikki and feel free to follow the podcast on the socials as well. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok at southern.reads. You can also find me on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Noah's Podcasts. And feel free to check out the website, noahspodcasts.com, to learn more about the show, as well as to find links to all my socials and where you can find the podcast and see where the podcast is available to listen. Feel free to, if you've watched today's episode, subscribe to the podcast so you get notified of when new episodes come out. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in today's episode. Hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day. Be safe, and I will see you in the next episode of Southern Reads.